Welcome to the Find Your Leadership Confidence podcast with Vicki Noethling. You are about to discover impactful lessons that help you grow as an individual, grow your confidence, and find the positive and good within you, so you powerfully and authentically become the best version of yourself. Be sure you visit our website at www.findyourleadershipconfidence.com. While you're there, subscribe to us via your favorite network. Now tune in, get ready, and enjoy the journey of emerging as a leader of exception in the 21st century.
Welcome, everyone, to the Find Your Leadership Confidence podcast. I'm your host, Vicki Noethling, coming to you from Roswell, Georgia. The goal of this podcast is to bring topics and guests that will empower you to become that confident leader and take your business and your life to the next level. Today, I am very pleased to have with me Elise Enriquez, and let me tell you about Elise. She is a productivity coach who helps business owners and their teams make the shift from feeling overwhelmed to taking back control of their time. Elise is your guide for discovering and doing what matters so you and your team can progress to your next level and enjoy that ride along the way. She takes her experience in the operational world of corporate America, the entrepreneurial world of real estate, and the transformational world of coaching to help you get the shift you need to improve and move forward and understand what matters most. So today we're going to talk about the journey from overwhelm to productive. Please join me in welcoming my guest, Elise Enriquez.
Thanks for having
Elise,
me. I'm so glad to be here.
I am happy to have you. So we always start with a couple easy questions, and that first is really just let everybody know where you call home. Where do you live right now?
I live in the Seattle area in Washington State. So we've just transitioned into fake fall where it feels like fall, and then all of a sudden we'll get a gorgeous sunny day and then it's back to fall again. So we're in that weird in between time. But it's a lovely place to live. And I've been here. I've been a Washington State resident like my entire life, but Western Washington or since college.
Yeah, towards the ocean. It is beautiful there. I had a 3-month project with UPS when I worked there as a project manager, and I visited from California up to Washington every week. And
oh man.
So I would go do one state at a time, and visit clients there. But I love Washington, so green and beautiful, and having the ocean view of that western side is just gorgeous.
Yeah, we're very lucky. We have water kind of everywhere because you have a couple of large lakes that are in the city area, and then the Puget Sound itself. So yeah, we're very lucky.
Yeah, beautiful area. So we know where you live. Tell us a little bit more about the journey. We talked really about, where you are today and how you help people today. But I love for you to uncover and peel back the onion to share about that journey, because oftentimes it wasn't what you started out thinking you were going to do, and then something happened that changed your direction, your path. So tell us a little bit about that journey.
It was you could hear a little bit of it in the bio when I talk about, corporate America to real estate agent to coaching. The thing is that I didn't know what I wanted to be. I didn't know what I wanted to do. I went to college. I went to the University of Washington and got a degree in communications because it was more of a general degree. It was communications theory. It wasn't like applied journalism or anything like that. So it was kind of my way of like making it through college, but not really having a specialization. And I still went into media. So first I was in print media at a newspaper. It wasn't a newspaper itself. We were like a buying and we helped place ads and charge for ads and monitor ads for newspapers. And then went into the online advertising industry at Microsoft. And it was there, though, I didn't realize it till later, that tapped into my entrepreneurial spirit, because we were kind of like a startup company within Microsoft because online advertising was new. And
Yeah.
so it was very much, flying by the seat of your pants, building the plane as you're flying it, all of that kind of stuff. And we were given a lot of leeway because we were exploring a lot. And I loved it until we became, sounds kind of funny, we became profitable, which meant that there was more oversight on us
Yeah.
and less entrepreneurial, right? And so
Right.
then it started to feel like I was more of a cog in this really big machine, and we weren't able to be as agile and creative and just figure things out. So I moved into real estate after that, simply out of desperation. So again, still didn't know what I wanted to do with my life. My husband at the time was a mortgage broker, excellent mortgage broker, still is. He's amazing at what he does. And so he said, you should be a real estate agent. We'll be a dream team, the whole bit. And we did it, and we were. And I didn't like being a real estate agent either. So I went for it and I did well at it, and it just still wasn't the thing. So I kept having like success on paper, but it didn't feel compelling or fulfilling to me. And it was through real estate that I got exposed to coaching. So it was accidental, but I did spend about a year doing informational interviews and exploring what I really wanted to do. And I got introduced to the concept of coaching in real estate, but that was sales coaching, and got more into the realm of like life coaching and that kind of thing in 2009, and got certified as a life coach. And then over the years refined who I was working with and how I was working with them to what I do today.
Wow. Such a journey. And I do agree with you. The projects that I did and was involved with whenever I first started with UPS, and then a couple at the end of my time before retiring, were ones that we didn't, it was new technology, never done before. And
Mhm.
so you expected to screw up and fail because you were just
Yeah.
trying to figure out what was best and what worked. And they are so much more fun. I mean, frustrating at times whenever you do fail and you try to figure out why did it fail, but it is so enjoyable. And I wish um I wish that was available to a lot more people, because you
Yeah.
get so much fulfillment. And it does kind of align with being an entrepreneur, because you do need a coach, but it's
Mhm.
somebody to just like talk about, and just you ping off different ideas of how you could
Yeah.
change things as you each get to know each other. So coaching and everything just aligns really nicely to what we do today.
Yeah. I think of a lot of Yeah, I think a lot of times people will hire a coach. I seriously have had so many clients, they just tell me what to do. And I just laugh. I'm like, oh, hun, that's not what we do here in coaching. And
No.
even with something as specific as productivity, I might be a little bit consultative sometimes, a little bit more directive sometimes than I would if I was a life coach. But to me, there's what's grown out of becoming focused on productivity with people is more of a mindset of experimentation,
Yeah.
of being able to say, let's run this experiment. Here's the problem. Here's kind of a hypothesis that we have. We think that we'll be able to solve this problem by trying this. Okay, let's try this for depending, it could be a week, a month, depending on what the problem is, and see what happens. And then we'll make pivots as we need to,
Hmm.
rather than it being this all or nothing, win or lose, succeed or fail
Yeah.
kind of mindset. Because when people get in that really binary mindset, they're afraid to
Hmm.
take a step. And instead, it's like, okay, let's just try this. Like it keeps it very
Yeah.
loose and open to learning, like letting yourself not do well, letting the experiment not go well, and
Hmm.
then learning from that instead.
You know, I remember I had in my first years as a supervisor, I had 9 people working for me, and one of them was a programmer. And
Hmm.
this is before the whole work from home thing was ever, this is in the late 90s. And this girl did her best programming at like 2 and 3 in the morning.
Mm.
And so my style of management was to get to know my people well. And the norm was that you worked 7 to 4 or 9 to 5 or whatever it was. And it took me to champion for her to my upper management to say, if you want good work from her,
Mm-hmm.
and she can do awesome, excellent work, you have to allow her to do her work in the
Mm-hmm.
early morning hours and let her go home at 1 or 2 and sleep. And then she will give you excellent. And she did. But it was, well, you could set a precedent. I'm thinking, how many people out there
Yeah, not a lot of people are saying, let me work
are
those
saying,
hours.
I want to work, from 10 to our shift people, obviously in the hubs
Yeah.
and things. But it was like, why? Why would you not do that if that's where she excels at?
Mhm.
And I think too often we try to tell people how to do things without
Mhm.
understanding where their strengths and weaknesses are to try to be able to get out of them their best
Mhm.
within those confines. Unless, of course, it's something that they want to change. I'm sure in your coaching of
Right.
the people, there's some things that they're doing that just aren't good, that aren't
Mhm.
smart to do, and they need to change behavior. And of course, you have to kind of then a little bit of coach them to have them see the need, they've come to the end of the road for how they can get by with that.
Well, and there's that part of it, but I mean, the gift that you gave is that you were able to see that with that person. A lot of people don't see it for themselves. And so I think it does take a really skilled manager or a coach to help people see that for themselves. And so I always kind of say that a lot of people find me because they're pretty self-aware. They're not always onto themselves completely, but they're pretty self-aware. And my job is to get them to self-acceptance, to be able to, you had to go and fight and advocate for her to have the hours that were going to suit her. And she probably knew what those hours were, and you did. And you had to go, fight with it with somebody else to make that happen, really do that for her. Other folks, they don't know that about themselves, or they know it and they resist it. So there's like the difference between awareness of something that they need and acceptance, because a lot of times people have awareness, but then they judge it and don't give it to themselves. And so my job, I feel like, is to get them to accept and say, it's okay that you need that. Let's figure out how to create that for you. Again, let's run an experiment to see what it'd be like to work those hours and see how it goes. Like, let's see
Yeah.
what's possible.
And it was really just happened chance that I came across it because she was coming in really tired. And it was like I knew that the stuff that she was giving us was really great, but she wouldn't have been able to maintain that,
Yeah.
and she would just have probably quit because
Yeah.
she would have fallen asleep during the day or something. And so it was one of those things where we had a discussion, and it started out as to why are you so tired all the time? And then whenever she told me, and I knew the work that she was turning in, that's when I knew at that point that
Mhm.
it was worth me going to the battle for her, because she had proven that. But I don't think that she knew that, as you said. I think
Mhm.
it was really in that conversation that we were able to uncover it in. And I think that's what one of the reasons I teach leadership with the heart, the head, and the hand is you have to know your people. And
Mhm.
it isn't one size fits all. We have such a
No.
diverse audience out there that it is more work for managers today to really lead their people, but you have to
Mhm.
do the work to get the most out of those people.
Yeah, and that requires getting to know people, like really truly getting to know them. Yeah, absolutely.
So you have this different approach to productivity than most people. Could you please share a little bit more about that?
Yeah, it's interesting because when I have a group program that people will go through, and one of the first things we talk about is like, what do you think productivity is? When you hear productivity, what does that mean to you? And a lot of times, like, oh, it's getting stuff done, it's to-do lists, it's being organized, and it's like, yeah, that's a lot of what people think of as productivity, is like getting more done, being more efficient and effective. And my focus is in helping people shift that take to say, what if it could be a little bit different? And it's really more about making progress on what matters most to you, while still remaining present to the people, experiences, and opportunities that are all around you. Because as somebody who, for a period of time, I was coaching a lot of folks like in sales that were like trying to achieve at all costs. Let me just hit this goal. Let me hit this goal. And they're burning themselves out. They were losing connection with friends and family because they were so focused on the productivity of earning that they were losing people along the way. They were losing their health along the way. And I just saw so much of that in that environment that I wanted it to be different for people, and that people could have a different approach. And it's founded in this idea is that life's short. Like, who knows for sure if there's an afterlife, depending on what you believe. We all have different beliefs about what happens when we die. But for all we know, like, this is what we know is this life here. So how can we achieve what we want to achieve and still enjoy that journey along the way? And that requires the ability to be present while you are making progress on the stuff that matters most to you. And it requires you to think about what matters most to you, to take pauses instead of just kind of being reactive and nose to the grindstone all the time, to pause and reflect and think about what matters most right now across all aspects of my life. What matters most, and how can my systems support me in prioritizing that and keeping things off my mind enough that I can also be present with the people that I'm with, personally and professionally.
So true. So, what is the number one mistake that business owners are making when they become overwhelmed?
It is that lack of pause. And I remember having a coach that said sometimes you have to slow down to speed up. And he likened it to when you're driving a manual car, and you're driving a stick shift and you step on the clutch. When you're doing that, it's disengaging the engine for a moment so that you can move into the next gear. So there's just that like little lull before you move into the next gear. And a lot of times when people are overwhelmed, they feel like they just have to stay at it, stay up later, wake up earlier, like all of these things to just try to knock everything off that list that they put on there, that they piled onto the list. And when they can pause and start to get realistic about the time they actually have and decide how they want to use that time, they start to realize that things have to come off the list. I kind of have this weird um goal for people, weird hope for people that one, they start to do less, just do what they're doing better, do less but better, and in a way that feels more fulfilling to them, but also for them to feel just as good about what's not getting done as they do about what is getting done, because it's a conscious choice, right? They're consciously choosing not this because this, right? So I'm not going to do this because I'm choosing to prioritize this. And it can take a while for that to feel good, but you do it enough, it starts to feel a lot better, and you start to feel more calm and peaceful in your productivity.
So, two things come to mind as you were talking about that. First, one of my first jobs, I worked for an accounting firm. And during the tax season, I was a front desk person, but I also had to help type up all of those tax returns we had in
Mhm.
and long financial reports. And I knew that I worked sometimes till 10:30, 11 o'clock at night, and then had a bus ride home. And so around October, I would just go to Florida by myself, leave my husband at home, and I would just kind of de-stress myself, look at the
Mhm.
ocean, and prepare myself for the next 3 months that I was going
Mhm.
to have. And thankfully, my partner was cool with that. The other thing is that oftentimes our desk at our offices or home or work is filled with things that we have to do. We have our to-do list and we have our piles of things. And as you said, we have goals that we want to have our desk cleared. Like when I first started working, I thought I have to clear my desk before I leave at night. I always have to do that. And then it just got to a point where it's like, well, why? It will be there tomorrow and I will
Yeah.
do it tomorrow. And
Yeah.
there will be more stuff piled on, and that pile will never go away.
Mhm.
And so when you
Yes.
stop stressing over that and realize just do your best with what you have to do, learn to know what's, that first thing that you should get done. And sometimes it's the hardest thing that you can put off and put off. But if
Mm-hmm.
you finally get to that hard thing at the end of the day, you're not at your best.
Mm-hmm.
So being self-aware of when is the best time for you to work, is it at 2 and 3 in the morning? Is it
Yeah.
at 9 or 10? Like, you know, do you like to come into work whenever an hour or two early before people get there so
Yeah, but
you
it's
have
still
no
quiet.
interruptions? I
Yeah.
always did that, where the phone's not ringing off the hook. Nobody's going to walk in and ask questions, and you do your best work there. Or the other side, between 5 and 6 or 7, if it will, when everybody's like getting the hell out of there, and you again have no phone interruptions and things like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I do my best like deep creative work either late at night or early in the morning. And it's so funny because I don't have a phone ringing off the hook. Sure, I'll have emails coming in, but it is something about energetically, I don't have like the energy of everybody else like in my own head around me, that kind of like waiting to be of service feeling, because that's like my personality type. So that's something I need to be aware of, right? And so in knowing that, it's like, okay, I need to plan. I have a creative project that I'm working on, like a workbook that I'm redoing. And that's a lot of like just being in a design program, creative time. So I was actually realizing just this morning on my walk that I need to schedule a night that I can just be at my desk at night, and that's okay. And let my partner know, right? That that's what's going to be happening and they won't care, but like that I need that time because that's when I'm at my best for that kind of work. It's just a fact. Like why resist it?
I'm going to pause for a second. My grandsons are yelling in the background, and I
Okay.
just want to let them know that Oma is doing something up here. I'll be
Sounds
right
good.
back.
Okay.
Yet. All
How'd they
right.
do?
They have the puppy in the mix now.
Oh no. Oh, God. Oh.
All right. So
Well, they
we'll
let us get a
start.
good stretch in there, I have to
That's
say. That's
right.
a lot.
They
That
did.
was a lot of
They
time for
did.
us to manage.
All right. So we're going to start with the next question is
Okay.
coming up now. So why is it that you can have all the best technology and that it's all the awesomeness of it, and you
Hmm.
still feel like you're all over the place, that you have so many balls in the air and you're not catching any of them?
Yeah, it's interesting because I always feel like people think technology is going to save them. And don't get me wrong, I have people build what I call a bonus brain, a place to hold everything that needs to be remembered, everything that they think they might need, so that they're not holding it in their own brains anymore. And at the same time, it can go too far where they invest in something that's too much, too big, more than they need, or they have a lot of different apps and they're dispersing what needs to get done into a bunch of different places. And so the best thing that people can do is actually simplify and streamline as much as possible. So I'm a big fan of starting either with what you have or starting with really simple when it comes to your tech stack, when it comes to the apps that you're using. The app that I use to run everything, like to make sure I stay on top of stuff besides my calendar, is $30 a year. It's not, and it's really just a to-do list app. It's just
Mhm.
how I use it. So part of it is there's two main problems. One is everything is dispersed into too many apps, or they've invested in technology that is way beyond what they need. And so they're not really using it, right? They're not really using it because they don't really know how to use it. But the other reason is that people don't figure out how to have a relationship with their technology to have it support them. There's a lot of like you can go to the help page for any kind of app you have, and they're going to tell you how they think you should use their app, but that's not necessarily what's going to serve you best. And so my favorite thing is actually saying, okay, show me what you're doing, show me your work, show me your life, show me what's happening, show me your email, show me your calendar. And then we'll figure out how you're going to start using things. I have core fundamentals that I teach people, but even that is just really just foundational, simple stuff. What changes everything is the nuance, personalization, and customization for each person. That's just hard sometimes to do for yourself because you can't see it for yourself. So just is sometimes, as you know, helpful to have somebody else's eyes on things. So that's the other part is like, what relationship are you going to have with this
Mhm.
technology so that it can actually support you, so that you can trust it? Because that's where the gap can be, is if you don't trust your tech, you're not going to use it. And if you don't keep it updated, you're not going to trust it. So it's this unfortunate catch 22 where if you don't trust it, you're not going to use it. If you don't use it, you're not going to trust it. So your only choice is to use it.
Mhm.
Your only choice is
That's
to
it.
use it and make it work for you so that you can trust it. Because once you trust it, it supports you. And it's
Mm.
really freeing that way. But it
Yeah.
takes that effort to really use it. And it's a habit. And that's why my podcast is called a productivity shift. It's like my whole approach is productivity shift. I used to have it be productivity breakthrough, like there was going to be some big change. Like now it's habits, right? It's how you're
Yeah.
engaging with stuff on a daily basis. You're not going to learn one thing and it's going to change everything forever. You're going to learn one thing and then you're going to have to implement daily over and over again
Yeah.
so that these things can support you.
And I think that's really important. It's even it aligns really well with whenever you talk about goals and your the best goals are the small ones that compound over time to get
Yes.
you to that big audacious goal.
Hmm.
But and so it's the same thing with the technology, it is best to start small. For my podcast, I started with just my camera on my laptop and earbuds, or not even earbuds, the wired earphones. But
Hmm.
then as I progressed, though, I got a camera and then I've got more lighting and then I got this wonderful microphone. But it's as you need it. But I didn't do it until I needed it. And I
Yeah.
think we hear, especially as we go to all our coaching calls and things, all these wonderful new things, these shiny objects we
Hmm.
have to have. Well, no, if you're not there yet,
And they're
you
so
know,
good at selling them. These apps
I
are
know.
really good at selling you on saving you. But if you don't know how you want to run your business, like if you haven't actually got that out of your head, right? And in front of you to say, no,
Yeah,
this is how we treat people. These are our standards. These are our service level agreements. This is what we do. Then your technology can't support you. The app doesn't know that, right?
yeah.
The app is it's garbage in, garbage out, right? So
Mhm.
you have to decide how you want things to happen. And then we figure out how to have your tools support you. So I'm constantly saying to my people, any of my clients, the teams that I serve, how is your system not supporting you right now? Right.
Yeah,
If one of sometimes I'll have a manager reach out to me and say, "Hey, I'm noticing this problem with this team member. Can you help them?" I'm like, "Yes." Send them an email, put me on it, and that way they know that we're all talking about this. Right. This is a nice open conversation, and we'll get a session scheduled. And so then when we get the session scheduled, I say, okay, got the email from Joe. Looks like here's what's going on. Tell me more about it.
yeah.
And then I'm able to say, so rather than saying, like, what's your problem? How come you keep screwing this up? It's like, how is your system not supporting you right now? And we start
Mhm.
to look at how do we make the system support them instead of it
Yeah.
being some like inherent flaw in them, like a personality flaw or something, right? So that changes everything because now we're problem solving together so that their system supports them moving forward.
Yeah. And that kinda goes into my next question, and when we talk about the subconscious, and so what are some common
Mm,
subconscious set points or limiting beliefs you've observed in your clients that, um, that they need help to overcome
yeah.
these obstacles to really move forward, to start to be more productive, or
Hmm.
feel that they're being more productive as you start to go on that journey.
Yeah. Are you familiar with the book Atomic Habits by James Clear?
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so one of the fundamental things that he talks about in there is identity. And I've taken his work and put it into my work. So the very first thing that we start with in with any of my clients is, what is your current productivity identity? Because we start to see what are the negative beliefs that they have
Oh,
about
yeah.
themselves. I'm never, I always, I am, right? And so because we know the most powerful words are I am, like the word, what
Hmm.
comes after that changes, who we are. We're
Yeah.
claiming an identity. I'm lazy. I'm unorganized. I never finish things on time. I'm always late. Da 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 da. Right. I always take on too much. I don't say no. And so we get to see, like, okay, this is their current identity. And then we work on, okay, what is the identity that you're working towards? And it's always funny because I know that they're itching for really practical stuff at the beginning. They want us to make progress. I'm like, by the end of this session, we are already going to be starting to set up your bonus brain, but that's not going to help us if we don't know the identity that you are working towards. So what is your productivity identity that you're working towards? And so we start defining that, right? So that
Yeah.
we can start to figure out, okay, what are the actions that you will take on, like what are the way James Clear talks about it is, every action we take is a vote for the person we're becoming. And so it's always focused on what are the actions you can take to vote for that identity that you want and not the identity that you've been.
Yeah.
So it's like it's this uncovering of those beliefs along the way, choosing a different identity. And then as we encounter really specific problems, other limiting beliefs they didn't know about surface and they pop up and then we work on that, right? So there's always going to be opportunities for our brain to fire back up and work against us because that's, keeps us, it tries to keep us safe.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so, but that's the stuff that we talk about along the way, because that is what gets in our way. It's not always going to be the tactical, practical app type of stuff. Sometimes it's
Yeah.
going to be us. We're going to get in our own way. And so we have to be able to tackle that as well. And so sometimes I'll have a session with somebody that starts out feeling very tactical, practical. And then I'll realize, like, oh, they are people pleasing and they don't want to stop people pleasing because it has served them until now, but it's not serving them anymore. And now I need to surface this for them, right? And
Yeah.
talk about that and see how, have them think about how to reflect on that between now and the next time we work together, right? So it becomes this mix of like life coaching and
Yeah.
really practical, tactical app type stuff. And other times it's like, do you have a therapist you're working with? This is deeper work that you might want to do. So there's some of
Yeah.
that too, it's across the board.
Not certified in that. Um,
Yeah, that's because some people are like, wow, you're like a therapist. I'm like, I'm not a therapist. I'm not a
no, no, no,
therapist.
no,
Don't say that.
please,
I'm not a
no,
therapist.
no. And it's funny. It's why I always say that life is a project. I was a project
Mm,
manager for a long time, and I teach project management,
yeah.
but it's because life is a project. If
Yeah.
you in your first part of your project, the most beneficial phase is that information gathering phase.
Hmm.
And like you said, most of the stakeholders want to get to that first big thing, that
Yeah.
first solution or rollout or whatnot.
Or
And it's,
milestone or
yeah,
something.
yes. And it's like, but no, I need to just talk to you about things and understand your processes. And in those discussions is when I see where the gaps are and the
Hmm.
opportunities. And so many times it was they were focused on this, but then as we peeled that onion, it was like, oh, but there's this whole other opportunity that's you could get to faster, more efficiently, have a bigger benefit, and they weren't even thinking of it.
Hmm.
And it's often, that's just the way life is that we have in mind what we want to do with our businesses, with our, teams, and we put blinders on to allow for us to really understand what is the opportunity.
Mhm.
Where are the gaps that we need to fill with other people, other processes, other policies, whatnot?
And we can get those insights from our team members. We can get those insights by pausing and reflecting for ourselves, but also by having those outside eyes on things to be able
Yeah.
to see the patterns, like you said, that they can't see. It's like we sometimes we just can't see our own stuff. I remember
Yeah.
um, Brian Buffini is a big real estate sales coach, and he would talk about you don't see a toilet paper on your own foot. You were like, yeah, another
Been
coach talks,
there.
you can't read the jar from inside, inside. You can't
Yeah.
read the label from inside the jar, right? Like all of those
Mhm.
things like that. It's like, yeah, it's like sometimes we need that
Yeah.
outside perspective. And that can be peers too. That can be part being in a mentorship group and a peer
Yeah.
mentoring group, anything like that, a mastermind. Really letting other people into what you're trying to do so that they can help you see where those
Yeah.
gaps are. Yeah.
I help people be better speakers. And I love to say, let's just run through this presentation, this pitch, or whatever you're doing, because as you say, it's another perspective, another person reacting to it. You could go over that over and over and over, and you become almost numb to how
Mhm.
people are going to receive what you're giving them. And so it's so good to just have someone give you that other perspective of, well, why don't you try this? And it goes back to our earlier part of the discussion, that those initial uh, ideas that we throw out at it may not stick. It's like the
Mhm.
spaghetti on the wall. It may not stick. So it's not done yet.
Yeah, yeah,
But you
totally.
just have to work a little bit more and be open to that too. So
Mhm.
mindset in everything is so important, but in productivity too, it's important because you may think everything's working well, but it may not be.
Well, and there's just like there's things like procrastination that
Mhm.
there procrastination isn't inherently bad. But it is important, or I should say, and it is important to know what's behind it, because sometimes it's that the thing really isn't ready, and you said yes to something when you shouldn't have, and so now you're procrastinating it. So there's some of that sometimes, but other times it's like it's fear, or it's I don't know how to do this. And so when we can get underneath it and see what the thoughts are, the mindset is underneath or behind the procrastination, then we can decide whether it's been good or bad or what we're going to do next, right? Because sometimes it's good that you didn't start the thing because it was a bad idea and you should have said
Yeah.
no. No big deal, right? Now we
Yeah.
can just like go back and renegotiate. Or other times, like, well, I think you just need to be asking some people more questions and get some more help on this. And like now they can make progress. But it's getting under, like you said, the mindset of it all to help us see what's getting in our own way. Because again, we can get in our own way as much as any other obstacle that's outside of us.
So the next question kind of goes along with the idea that our world has always changed. I mean, things were always
Mhm.
changing, but it seems now with the aid of technology and whatnot, that it just is changing so much faster. And we learned from these last 3, 4 years that being able to pivot
Mhm.
when you don't have any idea what the future holds is really important. And it could, the way you may have been very productive and everything
Mhm.
was going great, and now everything's not working because you had to change, you had to pivot.
Yeah.
And so, how do you keep it together when the world comes upside down?
Oh gosh. Yeah. And like you said, we've had so much opportunity
To
to
practice that.
to learn from all of this. Uh so I'll give a personal example to illustrate this. So the bottom line answer to the question is leaning back on your systems and let them support you. The only way to do that though is to know what it is you actually need. Right? So that's like you have to pause and reflect and see, okay, what are my priorities? What do I need? Okay, now how does my system support me in this? And this is actually something that I didn't hear about till later, but one of my coaches talks about it as minimum viable, whatever. So minimum viable Elise, like what's the minimum viable version of you during a particular crisis, during whatever might be happening. So in 2020 of all years, when all of a sudden we're in lockdown and pandemic and all this stuff, my cousin died, my father died, who I'd been estranged from, and it was totally unexpected. My cousin we knew was coming. But it was just like all of these things were happening. Turns out perimenopause was starting. So it just was all
Awesome.
of these things that were just happening all at once. And when my dad died, I was trying to figure out, how do I serve my clients and keep my business afloat while I navigate this really complex grief? And so I had to stop and think about, like, what matters most right now. Of everything that's happening, what matters most? Well, making sure I can serve my clients appropriately, which meant not seeing them for 2 weeks, right? The best way I could serve them was to not serve them for 2 weeks, so that when I came back, I could be my best self. It meant being able to pause my podcast, to pause my email, to pause like all of these things, but consciously, instead of just falling into a pit of despair, but then also in the back of my mind worrying about everything, because I was consciously pausing those things, consciously communicating to the people who mattered. So I always think of it as this model of intention, of clarity, communication, and consistency. You get clear on something, you communicate it to who matters most, and you set up your systems to support you towards consistent action. So I got clear on what I needed. I communicated that to my clients and to my email base. And then set up my systems to support me so that nothing was due in my life or my business between now and 2 weeks from now. And then I could revisit it in 2 weeks. And so even my system, like my calendar was cleared, my to-do list was cleared for 2 weeks, everything was cleared for 2 weeks. And that was obviously an extreme situation. So we'll take it to another scenario. A coach of mine, her husband broke both of his arms on vacation, a horrible fall, broke shoulders, broke arms, stuck in another state rehabilitating. She's trying to come back to work, take care of the cats, run her business. And so she had to think of what was her minimum viable version of herself. And in her case, she could work with clients. She felt okay to work with clients. But she needed to pause the podcast, and she needed to pause her emails, and she needed to pause life engagements, and she needed, right? So it's like, but then setting up your system to support that, to be able to say, okay, this is the clarity I got. I remember getting an email from her saying, here's what happened. We will keep our sessions, but please expect delayed response times from me between now and whenever, right? And so it's doing that, being able to say, like, okay, when these pivots need to happen, we have to pause for clarity. We have to pause and think about what really matters right now, and then communicate that out to whoever's affected. Because that goes so much longer distance than apology after apology after apology, because you were trying to keep it together when you shouldn't have been trying to keep it together. You deserve time to recover from hard things. You deserve time to figure out your pivot, even if it's a business pivot. You deserve time to do that. And you get that time and space when you communicate to your people.
And I think it's also giving yourself permission to do that. I told you at the beginning of this podcast, my life was going to be a little different. So I knew
Or
that
a
I was
lot
going.
different. You got
I knew that I was going to have my grandchildren for 3 of the days of this week. And so I worked it out that they were at camp for the first 2 days. My daughter put them in camp for the first 2 days, and that I could be able to do my podcasting, things like that. And then I had blocked out the other 3 days. So I was only going to have 1 or 2 podcasts that I could do while the kids were involved in other things. And then Saturday, my daughter broke her ankle. My daughter lives here. I love having another set of eyes and hands in the house. And so now she is, incapacitated. And I have 2 grandkids, and a puppy and a husband.
And
So
and a grown
the
daughter
world
that you're now
changes.
taking care of.
Yes. So I sent out those apologetic emails to the people that I had meetings with to say, let's just reschedule. Here's my life. This is what happened. And I did not feel at all guilty having to do it, because I have priority over what is important, and that is family, right? So, but there are people that would just feel terrible that they had to, get out of a meeting or cancel podcasts or whatever.
No, they
But
just
why?
grind it out. They just
But
grind it
why?
out, and
Yeah.
then, yeah. They don't know
And
why they're
you're,
so tired and exhausted.
yeah, that's right. Trust me. You don't sleep a lot whenever this happens.
Yes.
Anyway, again, give yourself grace. It's okay.
Absolutely. And and people are going to give you more grace than you
Oh yeah.
realize because you know that you would, right? Like even
Yeah.
when you and I got on the call and you told me what was going on, I'm like, do we need to reschedule? Like it's totally cool if we need to reschedule. Like as soon as I heard that, I'm like, if you need to reschedule, just let me know. No big deal, right? And obviously it's worked out because we're here right now, but like there's people are ready to give you grace.
Yeah. Yeah, the
Yeah.
responses I get are always so kind and wonderful. And that's why I love doing this, and just a shout out to Podmatch who hooks us up with so many great people that I said it's the best dating service for podcasters in the world
It is.
because I always get people that are just so wonderful. And a lot of times I end up being friends with the people I podcast with because the guests are just perfectly aligned to what I do and
Yeah.
how I'd like to have no jerks allowed in my podcasting world. That's
Yes,
for sure.
totally.
So the final question that I have is, you talked about unshouldering yourself and making the most of brief, brilliant, beautiful life. I just love that
Mhm.
because it is nobody's guaranteed tomorrow. And,
Mhm.
I have on my desk a reminder that someday is today because you
Mhm.
don't know if COVID taught us anything is you don't know.
Yes.
And, um, and so, yes, we need to be productive and yes, we need to uh, do our best, but understand that your best is not perfect.
Mhm.
And,
Yeah.
and so talk to us a little bit about that journey.
Yeah, I definitely started that journey before COVID, but boy, did COVID like hammer that message home.
Yeah.
As I mentioned earlier, my former husband or my ex-husband, I got divorced when I was 40. So it was so stereotypical. I mean, like, gosh, you could have plotted it out, right? Um, but it was that sense of like life is ticking by. And this, as hard as we've worked on this, it's actually not working.
Yeah.
And it took my sister, and actually with the person who I'm with now, it was my sister that was kind of like, life's short. Go for it. Date this person. They seem to light you up. They seem, and you fast forward and we're married now and like so like the happiest I've ever been. But it took that mindset of, yeah, like we only get this one brief, brilliant,
Yeah.
beautiful life. Like how do we make it feel good along the way? Which is why I define productivity the way I define it, is that it's not about getting things done. It's about making progress on what matters most. And sometimes what matters most is lunch with your best friend because you haven't seen
Yeah.
them in a while. Sometimes what matters most is answering my mom's call because she needs tech support and I'm going to miss those calls someday,
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
sometimes what matters most is blocking off my calendar. I block like from noon or no, from 2 p.m. on Halloween. I'm unavailable because I'm going to go help my nieces get ready and I do their makeup and we get their costumes and I actually make their
Oh,
costumes. And sometimes what matters most is making sure I'm following up with clients, right? So it's not always going to be check offable. It's not always going to be checklistable. That
hmm
productivity is making progress on what matters most while still remaining present to the people in your life, to your clients, like so you can be present with your client, to yourself, to the opportunities that can pop up at any moment. That's what it's about. And so when we have our systems that support us, it allows us to jump on an opportunity, like I was saying
Yeah.
earlier, to have lunch with your best friend, right? Like it
Yeah.
allows us to do those things, to make conscious choices about it because life is short. We don't, or and the reality is like we don't know how long or short it's going to be, but it's going to
Yeah.
feel short regardless.
And I love that you talk about being present, and how it aligns with productivity because a lot of times we think productivity we have to schedule and plan out
Mhm.
and worry and whatnot. And that's why I end the podcast saying that life is a journey and it's up to you to enjoy the ride. Because
Yep.
sometimes we just are on this, merry-go-round and we don't even stop to look at what's around us. We're just trying to look ahead as to what's coming.
Yeah. Well, and it is like all of those societal shoulds that are coming at us. And
Oh
we have to be
yeah.
able to sometimes put that barrier up and go, but what do I want?
Yeah.
What is fulfilling to me? What do I want for my family? What does my family want? Let's talk about that, right?
Mhm.
Forget what everybody says the perfect family, the perfect mom, the perfect wife, the perfect whatever looks like, perfect daughter. What do I want? Who do I want to be? And how do I do that? Because the shoulds of society are very powerful. There are systems built all around it. There's a reason for it. And we need to be able to say, okay, good information. Thanks for telling me what you think I should do, but what do I want to do? And
Yeah.
then you can have your systems support you in that, right? Like on my calendar, the first Thursday of every month is movie night with my best friend.
Nice.
And if we have to move it, we have to move it. But that is a priority for us, is that we have some connection time where her kiddos are not around, because we do a lot of family time with them. I don't have kids, so I have a lot of capacity for being around kids, around other people's kids. But we also need that just grown up time. And so we do that by watching movies together and talking
Nice.
about them. And so that's, my system supports that. Nobody gets that time but her.
Nice. Well, as you see, we could talk for
No.
the next 3 days, but it is time for me to share your contact information with the audience. So those of you that are just listening, you should have had a paper and pencil to get the notes for this wonderful conversation we've had. But if you haven't, go grab now, or it will be on my YouTube channel, Vicki Noethling. So please subscribe, as well as my findyourleadershipconfidence.com. The website is EliseEnriquez.com. That's ELISE. And then Enriquez is ENRIQUEZ.com. Facebook is the Productivity Shift. And LinkedIn is Elise M. Enriquez. And Instagram is the Productivity Shift again. I'm going to turn it over to Elise to talk to you about her call to action and also what you might find on her website that would be helpful, resources, links, and also where she spends the most time in social media if you wanted to DM her and get more instantaneous comments back or advice. So, Elise, it's all yours.
Thank you. So Instagram is definitely the best place to DM me. That's also where you'll see any releases for my podcast, so the Productivity Shift. So you can check that out, but that's definitely the best place to DM me. On my website, you'll find a link to my quiz, which is actually the call to action. So I created a quiz. I kind of call it a part Cosmo quiz, part actual personality assessment, where we look at your productivity personality. And it's fun. It's 2 minutes. It's a way for you to see what your productivity strengths are and the roadblocks that tend to get in your way for your type. And it's, I think, just a good starting point. I always feel like assessments are a good starting point for exploration. This is focused specifically on productivity. So you'll find a link on my website to do that, or you can go to EliseEnriquez.com/quiz. And also on the website, you'll learn more about the GIST community. And so that is for my solopreneurs who are looking to build their bonus brain and to get into the rhythms of engaging with their systems in a way that support them in a community setting. You'll learn all about that there.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for being such a wonderful guest. I really enjoyed our conversation, and I hope that people do take the quiz. I took it as I was preparing for this, and it is very quick. And the results that I got are ones that I have received before, so I'm pretty sure
Good. It was
it's
spot
accurate.
on. Yay, good.
As always, I remind everyone that life is a journey, and it's up to you to enjoy the ride. This is Vicki Noethling, signing off.
Thank you for tuning into the Find Your Leadership Confidence podcast with Vicki Noethling, where we share impactful lessons that help you grow as an individual, grow your confidence, and find the positive and good within you so you powerfully and authentically become the best version of yourself. Remember to visit our website at www.findyourleadershipconfidence.com and enjoy even more great episodes like this one. Again, while you're here, subscribe to us via your favorite network. We look forward to seeing you next time on the Find Your Leadership Confidence podcast.